Hi, Gerry.
Hi, Camila. It's
So,
so good to see you in a different context.
oh yes, yes. I I wanted to say thank you for being here with me in this project, and for agreeing to discuss this book that you recommend. That you
Mhm.
recommend to me? Can I say to me or recommend me?
Recommended
Recommended me
to me.
to me.
Recommended to me.
Recommended to me maybe a year ago,
Or maybe
right?
more.
Or maybe more, or maybe more.
Hmm.
When I was reading the book, I think the first thing that came to mind is that without knowing, you've been sort of. I mean, we've known each other for
Three
almost three
years.
years now. Yeah.
It is three
So
years now.
yeah. So when I was reading it, I was thinking that you've been telling me because you know and um, so far by now, everyone who's been watching these 31 videos that I've been recording know that I had I have had some some things, some sad things that happened in
Hmm.
my life.
Hmm. Hmm.
One of them is the alcoholism of my father, and
Right.
something that you've been telling me it's that um, things bad things happened, but we should take those things and make something out of it. You have been
Hmm.
telling me this that like maybe what happened I cannot change what happened, but the fact that I grew up in those conditions could make me able to be more compassionate or
Absolutely.
understand people better or
Yeah.
connect.
Yeah. And before we go too far into this
Yeah,
discussion, I want to tell you it's okay if you get emotional, if you cry, if
yeah.
whatever comes out, it's okay.
Thank you.
Don't be
I might.
embarrassed.
I won't. I won't. I thought of
Okay.
it as I was
Uh-huh.
preparing myself for the discussion. I thought of it. I
Uh-huh.
might cry, but it's
Do you
okay.
know there's a funny American expression um, that you should remember if you don't know it already? Um, you should take lemons and make a lemonade.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So, so I remembered when you first told me that, and that I should be thankful for what happened, and then I was like, I mean, should I be I'm not sure if that those were your exact words, but I think the idea was that I should be okay with the past, make pieces because I remember that when we met, I was so angry at everything, at everyone, at my parents, at my childhood, at the experiences, at the maybe lack of opportunity that I had because of everything that happened. And so while I was reading, and we are going to talk about this wonderful book by Viktor Frankl now, and I mean, it was so wonderful, and I wanted to get into the book now, and I'll talk
Yeah,
about.
yeah. Let me say one thing. I would have never said should be thankful for what you went through.
Okay,
Um, no one should feel like they need to be thankful for suffering that they've
no,
experienced.
no,
Suffering is, I mean, pain is experienced very deeply. But, it's all about meaning.
yeah,
So I think what I've been trying to express in my imperfect Portuguese is that when you have this suffering in your life,
hmm,
if you can find the meaning in it, then you're not thankful for the suffering, but you might be thankful for the human growth that you experienced
exactly,
and how it brought out something very special that no one else but you has. Each of us has our own experiences combined with our own suffering.
yes,
And if you take that, if you're constantly making lemonade, well, you know, it helps it helps you absorb the punch of the pain.
hmm,
And when you give it back, it's like a flower that can bloom in the desert.
beautiful, Beautiful, Gerry. Beautiful. Yes. Yeah. So this book was written. So we are here to discuss this book called "Man's Search for Meaning." And the first time I've read it was in Portuguese, and now I've read it in English. Actually, I've heard it in English, and it was written by a professor of neurology and psychiatrist called Dr. Viktor Frankl, and I think it is one of the most powerful books. I mean, ever written, ever. I mean, it was maybe the powerful book I've read it.
Red.
I've read. Yes.
It's a weird verb. It's the same in the past tense and the present tense.
Yeah. Yeah, I've read. So he describes his experiences with the in concentration camp. He it is a very interesting and profound book, and I was very impressed by how dry it was. He was. Can I say that?
Oh,
It was he
yeah.
was he was describing the situations, and in the beginning he said that um, it is very difficult to talk for a survivor to talk about those horrific
Hmm.
experiences because they feel like they can't, they don't. I mean, if you were there, you know, but if you were not there, I mean, they words cannot possibly describe what
Right.
the life in a concentration camp was like. But I think he has done a great work, um, and yeah, yeah. So I was reading, and I was sometimes I had to stop because he was describing how he was tortured and he was hungry, and the clothing situation and the shoe situation and the cold and
Mhm.
people dying
All the
among
time.
them all the time, starving or being executed. Some people, they were even committing suicide. But something that I
Hmm.
discovered as I was researching for this talk was that the suicide rate in Auschwitz was not as high as it was in Vienna, and that's very. I mean,
Really?
yeah, and that is very interesting because you would
Mhm.
think and you would understand people for committing suicide because he describes people going to the electric fence to get electrocuted and
Mhm.
to die because they and I thought about it a lot, Gerry. I was thinking if I were there, I mean, would I would think, is this humanity? Is this humanity has become? Do I want to keep
Yeah.
living for what? And then he starts his book actually saying that um, why why would someone choose to live like?
Uh-huh.
And then he says, see, he quotes Nietzsche:
Hmm.
those who
Hmm.
has a why can bear with almost anyhow.
It's beautiful that you, yeah,
That is
yeah.
beautiful, right? And then it
You
is
took it
all
right from the
about.
book.
Hmm?
Hmm.
Tell
You
me.
got it right from the book. Right? It's great that you're remembering these lines.
Yes, I've been obsessing over this book. I mean, there are some parts that I've
Hmm.
listened to several times, and
Right.
yeah, I made a lot of notes, and I have
I think,
this
yeah,
notebook.
yeah. In Vienna, when the Nazis first came, the shock of losing everything, you went from having a beautiful life with a beautiful family, and the shock of violence, rape, murder, the realization that you've lost everything. What do you have to look forward to? I think there was a smaller and smaller group of people left with each day.
Yeah,
And the ones that were left had gradually been manipulated into thinking that there was something to leave for. There was food at the other end of the train. There was work at the other end of the train. So they wouldn't kill you because they needed you to work. they always had some hope, and then by the time they were absorbed into the camps, if they were with the minority that weren't gassed, then your humanity had sunk to this level where I don't know, you're more caught up in that very day, the survival of the moment, rather than you're down to your basic instincts.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why there wasn't as much suicide, maybe, as there might have been in a Vienna or Budapest.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Yeah. And an interesting. I've watched several interviews with Dr. Viktor Frankl, and
Mm-hmm.
there was one interview that he said, because he was helping inside of the camps, right? Because he was a psychiatrist, so he
Right.
was trying to help the inmates. And in an interview, he said that he tell a story. Now I'm not sure if that story is in the book. Help me remembering, but he tells this story about two, can I say inmates? They were
Inmates.
inmates. So two inmates that they wanted to commit suicide. So
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Viktor Frankl asked them why, and they said it's because oh, what I wrote it down somewhere, but he said that it was because they didn't expect anything from life anymore. So he said that he decided to improvise, and they asked back to those two individuals separately, but what if life expects something from you? What that would be? He changed the question. And then
Mm-hmm.
one of them said, well, actually, I have a daughter, and he managed to run away. She could escape to the United States, and then I would love to see her again. And then the other said, actually, I was a geography. I was writing some geography books, and I couldn't finish my geography collection. So I would love to leave so I could finish that. And then they had like this 180% of change in their
Yeah.
views,
Mm.
turn around, and then they changed and they didn't want to
Mm-hmm.
commit suicide anymore,
Right.
because now they had a purpose, a meaning, something
Mm-hmm.
to look for. And he describes in the book that the prisoners most likely to die were those who couldn't um, think about the future, or they
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't have, I mean, of course, it was not only that. I'm sure that, I mean, I am definitely
Right.
sure that people, they died, but
Uh-huh.
even in
Yeah.
that very
Yeah.
moment, they could chose the attitude.
Yes. Yes. We don't always control our situations, but we can often control how we choose to deal with that moment.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's I think that's one of the greatest takeaway from this book. It's how, it's that we cannot control what
Right.
happens to us,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
And I think there are two kinds of looking forward as far as what life expects from us.
mhm,
And in, in, in that moment, in every moment in our lives, we have uh, these needs
mhm,
that are, are very commonly experienced among addicts,
mhm,
where in the moment they've lost hope. Maybe even maybe a day from now they'll have hope, but it's so fragile that they're controlled by their impulses. In this moment, I want to kill myself. In this moment, I want a drink. And it's very important that in those moments when we're most fragile, perhaps before we do whatever we're going to do, we should ask ourselves in that moment, what does life expect from us as it applies to right now?
mhm,
You know,
mhm,
will this give me more self-respect? You know, is this something that tonight I'll sleep well with or not? You know, and
mhm,
then there's the more long-term perspective that maybe it's a matter of building up this habit of asking yourself why you're here and what does life expect from you. And
Yeah.
if you get into that habit, then you're going to be more forward looking. You have something to build upon. Um, if you have a one floor house, you want to add a second story for your children,
Yeah.
or you know, uh, you, you want to read this book so you can have an amazing conversation with Gerry, uh, whatever it is. Um, Everyone has different meaning. It's there for you if you explore it.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing, Gerry. Amazing. We, I mean, I know that I tend to think as suffering as something really bad,
Mm-hmm.
but I like how he talks, how he describes that. As I was saying before our conversation, I was telling you that I was watching a talk, an interview that he gave, and then he was describing this components that these tragic components that every human life has.
Oh, components.
Components, thank you, components such as pain, death, and guilty guilt
Guilt.
guilt.
Mm-hmm.
So he was saying that nobody can escape suffering, disease.
No.
Everyone is going to go through that at some point or several. Death, we cannot escape either, and we will feel guilt, and it is okay. So he was saying that death gives us a sense of, um, I mean, he was saying that if we were immortal, we would be pulling things off. I mean, procrastinating. We
Uh-huh.
would not do the things that we should be doing with our lives
Mm-hmm.
to give purpose and meaning. We would be okay, so maybe tomorrow I'll do
Right.
that.
Right. Our
Yeah.
time is time sensitive. We,
Yes.
we only have a short span of time in this world.
Yeah. So
It's
we should
ours to
be
make the most of it.
exactly to make the most of it, do something meaningful. And about pain, we should think that it help us grow. We grow through pain.
Mm-hmm.
So we should be able not be thankful, but appreciate the opportunity to evolve. So in
Right.
those moments, we can learn something very valuable and
Mm-hmm.
special about ourselves. And looking back at my life, I learned so much from suffering, and
Right.
I'm sure. I mean, I love Dr. Frankel, because I mean, I've went through, what I went through was not as horrible, not even remotely as what he has been through, and I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate him so much for coming out of it stronger and compassionate. And when asked
Mm-hmm.
about if he hated the German, he was
No,
like,
he
"Of course
doesn't.
not.
No,
I don't." I
yeah,
mean,
he stayed in Austria, which was the birthplace of Nazism.
exactly
Yeah.
how is it possible, right? Such an
Mm-hmm.
amazing,
Mm-hmm.
and he has this optimistic view of human race, like we are not we want we as can I say aspire, we aspire something bigger,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and
Yeah. We aspire to something greater.
something greater, and that is true. We want to serve. I believe that. And I was listening another conversation that he was having with a woman. She asked him, how, I mean, how to deal with despair, and then he said that it was this mathematic equation, that despair is D equals S minus S. So despair
Suffering.
equals suffering. What was the other meaning, purpose? Let me see.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
no,
didn't hear
M.
it
It
that
was
way.
M. It was M. It's because I was translating to Portuguese. Sentido,
Oh,
sentido, life purpose. Okay, so despair is equal suffering without meaning. So you have to find a meaning to what you're
the
suffering.
meaning the despair becomes manageable.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's through our suffering that nothing like suffering and pain gives us the ability to empathize with other people. It could harden you, and it's part of the brutality that we see in the world, that people have suffered so much pain and they lose that sense of hope, the sense of goodness. It's very easy to be overcome by pain,
Yeah.
but it also gives you the opportunity
Mm-hmm.
to uh, to walk a different life. Martin Luther King
Yeah.
is a great example.
Mm-hmm.
He any African American who grew up in the South suffered tremendously day to day to day to day, year to year, year to year, and yet from that he developed the strength and bravery to face forces of evil and create something that few people in humanity have ever done.
Yeah. Yeah.
He
Yeah.
transformed the United States without violence.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
But
I was.
who
Sorry.
would he have been if he was just if he was just some guy, in Chicago enjoying rap music? Would he have been changing the world? No, he had to go through what he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Incredible. Incredible. His story is incredible. Yeah. He was telling this story about uh, a guy from Texas who wrote him a
Mm-hmm.
letter
Mm-hmm.
telling the story of how he was diving and he got paralyzed
Uh-huh.
from the neck
Uh-huh.
above beyond.
Uh-huh. He
Yeah,
fractured his spinal column.
yeah, exactly. And then he was writing that he read his book and he got really inspired, and but he was also living that reality where he was saying that he broke his neck, but that didn't broke him.
It didn't
That
break his spirit. Uh-huh.
didn't break his spirit, because now he was actually living. Before that accident, he was drunk, he was not aware of existence at all, but now he was helping people, he was more alive than ever. And then and then I was like, so that is actually amazing, because we we think that we need some things in life. I used to think that in order to be happy, I needed maybe money, a good job, a husband. Um, yeah.
Who knows? Who knows?
But yeah, I thought I needed to speak several languages, travel, and I don't know. I just thought I needed so much. But this book, reading this book, I've read it actually some months ago, and especially reading now more deeply, intensively, I realized that we do not need money, we do not need even our bodies, because I was thinking what must have been like Viktor Frankl. He was watching his body melt away. He
Mm-hmm.
was only skin and bones, and still he was thinking, what can I learn from the situation? He was thinking about the lectures that he was going to give, the learning that, he made that seem like school. I'm learning from this and I'll help people after. And he was thinking, I want to see my wife, I want to see my family. He didn't know that they were dead maybe already, but they die in concentration camps as well. But he
Mm-hmm.
was constantly thinking about his wife. He was so happy when he could see a sunset or small things of nature. So we don't need much to live. We just need to address meaning to what we
Mm-hmm.
have, to our existence. That is
Right.
difficult to
Right.
do.
Right.
So I
I
wanted
think
to ask you, have you done it?
oh, goodness. I try to live that way. I
Yeah.
actually really do. I was very fortunate with the family that I have. We were always forward looking. We were always preparing and looking to see how we could help other people. I don't remember ever focusing on our own pain. My father, had a heart attack when he was 40.
Yeah.
And um, No, he never complained. He did things differently. He knew that health was important, but he stayed active. He very, very physical, very emotionally and intellectually involved. So, how have I applied it since? I think with each client that I had when I was a therapist, I gained more and more ability uh, to sink into, not sink, but to put myself in their shoes and experience their suffering. And I know that mine doesn't compare at all to theirs, but it's given me insights in how to grow from each and every painful experience. Even, I mean, life throws you new punches. You know, I had 2 or 3 people in my life who committed suicide, and
Yeah.
I've had employees that I gave my heart to and who had nothing in their life, and I built their fortunes, their careers, their futures, and I felt betrayed. And you know, I'd ask myself why, and I try not to ask those questions anymore because each person has their own, not only frailties, they have their own moral issues.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's at a different state, and um, I'm just lucky to be in the position I am. I know that it's very hard to get through life, and we choose the easy way. The easy way is often the road most commonly taken, and so I like to quote a Hasidic master who said that the long way, the short way is the long way, and the long way is the short way.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
The
the road less taken,
road less traveled, yeah, it's
the
that
road
road
less
less
traveled.
traveled is usually it seems like it's longer. You know, you have to work harder at it, but
Mm-hmm.
as you progress along the road, you realize you got to places where would have never been before.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
I experienced that with my work. I mean, when I was a teenager, we had Chinese neighbors,
Mm-hmm.
and my Chinese neighbors worked their butts off. The father, in this one family had like 8 kids, 7 boys, and each one had to give money to the family. Each one of them had 2 jobs when they were 13. And
Oh.
I always compared myself to them, and I thought, gee, I have a job for 1 week. I can't handle it, you know, and I have a job for a month. I can't handle it as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And with age and with time, I developed these work habits. And so that more and more, um, the more I work, the easier it is, the more fun it becomes, um, the more I enjoy the process and the outcomes. And so I go into it with a different spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and it makes it so much easier. And so this long road of learning work ethics, which most people don't have, for me at this point in my life, is is an immense blessing. That's
Mm-hmm.
why neither myself nor Karen really want to stop working,
Mm-hmm.
even though we're 65.
You both found meaning in what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yes, I guess I am in a place where I also found meaning in my work, in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I could explore more, and I think there's so much more to learn. But I'm so happy that in the past, I mean, when people ask me how this year has been, I feel kind of ashamed that this has been the best year of my life. The best. I mean, everyone is suffering, but I and I am as well. It's been a horrible year for humankind. But I I am so much better now. This year was like the happiest year. Even though I am in a city with no friends, we
Oh,
are in a lockdown, but I think that I found ways to cope with everything that I was dealing with. And about what you said, I have a quote for you that I
oh,
wrote down. Um, so yeah, so psychological observations of prisoners have shown that only the men who allowed their inner hold on their moral and spiritual selves to subside
mhm.
eventually fell victim to the camp's ge- gen- degenerating influences. I'm not sure if I wrote
Degenerating influences.
degenerating influences. So uh, I would think that if you are in a concentration camp, you should do everything in your power to survive, even if that means you gave up on your
Mm.
moral and spiritual standards. But when I
No,
was
no,
reading that, it's the
no, no.
opposite,
Yeah,
right? You should,
yeah, right. Just to keep the conversation a little light, so we don't end up in tears over this.
yeah,
Uh, Take for example, Star Wars.
mm-hmm,
You know, there's the character of Darth Vader
mm-hmm,
who went to the dark side of the Force. He allowed his anger to overcome him. And this, I mean, you're in a concentration camp. You're in the worst, you're hell on earth. And if you get into it, you just get sucked in further and further to where humanity doesn't matter. It's like someone who works in a meat processing plant and all day they're killing cows. You know, you develop this insensitivity and you drown in it. You drown in the pain of it. You become part of that evil machine, and it becomes easier and easier as you adapt to it. Um, and yeah, the more we suffer, the more we have to be asking ourselves the true meaning. What does life expect of you in this situation?
yes,
Is that what life wants from you? Is um, you know,
exactly. Yes,
yeah,
yes, yes. Yeah, and it is very easy when we are hurt and when bad things are thrown out in your way, are thrown in a
thrown
ray
in your path.
in our path.
Uh-huh.
It is very easy to become bitter and angry and close into a
Right.
shell and I don't know, mistreat people and blame and cast blame on others.
Mhm.
But we should not go there. So I was thinking, no matter how hurt I am, I will
Mhm.
not give up on my ethic and moral and standards,
Mhm.
because if you start doing that, you may not stop, you know.
Right.
I remember thinking when I was in college, I had I had this friend. I still have her. We still in each other's life, but she was very generous. So this teacher, she would assign a test in couple, no, in two, in a
Couples. Yeah.
couples, yeah,
Mhm.
couples. Okay,
Or
so
pairs.
pairs, yes. So we would always do the test, the exam together, but she wanted to help everyone, so she was telling our answers to everyone. And then I was like, Michelle, come on, don't do
Yeah.
it. And but she wanted to help. But then I remember thinking that was wrong. And we were in law school, and I was thinking, but if we start doing
Oh.
this now, even though are for good reasons, you want to help. I remember thinking, what is the I mean, it is it is a thin line. You want to
Uh-huh.
help, and then you think it's okay.
Oh.
So let me do a little bit of cheating here. But when do
Right.
you think this cheating? I mean, you know, it will
Yeah.
increase later. You won't
Yeah.
stop. So I remember telling her, let's not go there. Let's not even
Uh,
start because,
right. Right.
you know,
It reminds me of an exercise I did in social work school. And I
mm,
did a very bad thing
hmm,
because the idea of the exercise was to show how cooperative work produces greater results. And I said, okay, you know, I'm going to throw the teacher a little zinger because I got with one other guy,
Sorry, what
a
does it mean?
zinger,
What
a
does
zinger.
that mean?
I played a trick on the teacher.
Ah, okay, okay, okay.
I decided that the two of us decided that we were not going to cooperate.
Hmm.
And it destroyed the exercise,
Oh,
you
Gerry.
know, but, you know, it reminds me of Donald Trump because Donald Trump doesn't go by anyone else's rules. And so one of the problems you have in life is that you have a set of rules, you have a set of morals, but other people don't always play by those rules.
Yeah.
And I think it's an important lesson in life that we remember that most people don't have the kind of heart that you have, that I have, and they're not going to play by those rules. But that shouldn't affect the way that that we approach life.
Yes.
Um, Again, everyone has their own pain. I think one thing that the book doesn't go into a lot is defense mechanisms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all these, a lot of the bad things that we do are because we're defending something inside of ourselves. And those defenses are natural animal instincts. You know, if something comes your way in a dangerous way, you push it off. And but that also becomes a habit. And I have so many workers that I struggle to improve their lives because they're just constantly pushing away anything that approaches them. And I can't imagine how many times their fathers probably told them that they were idiots. But you know, you have to getting rid of the defense mechanisms is necessary because you have what's causing it, what kind of anger, what kind of issues are underneath that need to that well defense mechanisms are just fears.
Yes.
You know, it's a way of approaching your fear. So if you can gradually peel away like a banana, if you can gradually peel away the defense mechanisms, you can know what you're dealing with and experience the pain, probably because you've been suffocating it all
Yes.
this time. Um,
Yes.
for when it came to the Holocaust, I mean, the Jews went to Israel. I think they had something more to fight for, and they had a way of energizing their anger in a positive way. But for the vast majority of them, talking about exposing their anger and all the pain was something that they suffered for like 20, 30 years. It was only really in the mid to late 60s that books started to come out about what people experienced. You know, um, yeah. I mean, you even find people in Europe. Some of them converted. These are people who converted to Christianity, who never told their children that they were ever Jewish, that they ever suffered. Um, uh, um, Madeleine Albright, who's a famous foreign secretary for the United States. She discovered when she was like 65 that her parents were Jewish. You know, and it happened a lot. That people were just they were just very very afraid of exposing who they were. I mean, they're still carrying that fear for 40, 50 years.
Wow. Well, I understand. I sort of understand why. It must be extremely painful.
Uh, and in Portugal and Spain, there were Jews that kept these secret traditions for 500 years. And
Yeah.
they didn't, by 400 or 500 years later, they didn't even know why they were so scared. But they had all these traditions that they did in their basements. You
Yes.
know, they lit like candles on a Friday night in the basement. They'd have to go down to the basement to light the candles. But there's something they always did, you know, things like that. Uh, tells you how the fears go to a very subconscious level.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And and it's our job if we're into self-help, to bring more of that pain to the surface, and not all at one time, but enough so that you can awaken it and release it. I mean, we're energy organisms, and if all our energy is taken up by that fear and pain, we can't. It takes away our ability to think about the future, to think about joy, to experience the moment.
Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, amazing, amazing. I wanted to ask you a last question
Yeah.
because our time is,
Don't worry about the
yeah,
time.
but I wanted to ask you if you
Yeah.
wanted to say, like, for you, the greatest takeaway from this book, what
Oh.
would you say it is? How did this book impact your life?
Oh. Well, I get different things out of it um, at different ages. I've
Mm-hmm.
gone through this book a few times. Um, I, I think it mostly boils down to, uh, it says here, you can't always choose your circumstances, but you do have the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way.
Yes.
I think that's the key, not to let life make the choices for you, but you make the choices in life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a matter of, and he talks a lot about responsibility.
Yes.
Um, you know, I could do, any one of us could do a number of things that give us joy, but give someone else pain.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think responsibility says we're in this world together. Um, there's a karmic effect there, I guess. If we're going to be responsible, we can't be responsible to ourselves if we're not responsible with others as well. So the world's very symbiotic. It is a very cooperative environment. And if we're not, everything that we've tried to accomplish will break down. It could happen with one push of a button on an atomic bomb, or it can happen with all the negative things that happen in social media.
Yes.
I mean, we're all getting brainwashed by negative commentary all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to have some responsibility for moral outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
If we don't try to create moral outcomes, who will?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. What do you think? The last question, I promise.
The
Um,
last
yeah,
question.
the last. That is the last. What do you think about love in the book?
Ah,
I
I knew you were going to come to that, and there was
you
only
knew?
one little section about love, but I knew you would ask about
You knew. Oh, you know me. You know me so well.
it.
So he says,
What
love
does
is
he
the
say?
only way. Love is the only way to grasp another human being, the innermost core of his personality. What do you think about that?
Love is the only way to grasp the innermost core of their personality. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Well, love. If love is reciprocated, you can love someone who doesn't love you back.
Mm-hmm.
So if that love is reciprocated, it gives you the opportunity to enter into their soul in a way that nothing else can allow you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's some of that you experience uh, when two people are making love, but it can also be, just sitting by your partner, holding hands when they're feeling pain, or talking to them through something that they're angry about. And I guess the love just gives you that extra oomph to make it happen,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not just in the moment, but if it's love, it's this lasting energy that gets you over the finish line.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. As I was reading this, I thought, I thought to myself that I was so happy that we are going to discuss this book because you were the most loving person that I have ever met in my
Oh,
life. And then yes, Gerry,
what a sweet thing to say.
no, but I mean it.
I
Yes,
know you do.
yes, because you,
Your words are very precious to me.
thank you, thank you. I, I, I get so, um, what is the word? Can I say captivated or wonderstruck? I don't know what is the word, but when I'm having a lesson with you, a Portuguese lesson, and then someone calls you, it could be I don't
Oh,
know, your employees,
yeah,
employee,
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and you treat
yeah.
them with, I mean, people, I mean, they would, I mean, I've known people that are very distant, they have these barriers, and it's fine as well because
Yeah.
it is okay. But the way you treat them, the way, I mean, sometimes they just are so direct with you, and you're like, how are
Oh.
you? How is that person in your life?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
and you care about them, and
Oh, yeah.
also your teachers, and I mean your children, you talk about them as children, but your son, your children, right? Can I say that?
My children, yeah, yeah.
It is not that they are small.
Right. I think my
And
favorite word is sweetheart.
your sweetheart,
Yeah,
and
and I
Karen.
use them. Yeah, I call them all sweetheart. Even my workers sometimes I've called sweetheart.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
and I think, and you're in your Facebook posts, and I think
Yeah.
you are not very economic when you're distributing love. You're just giving your love to everyone, and I find that to be so amazing.
I have a
And I've
lot of
been
love to
thinking,
give.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I've been thinking about that it is okay. I mean, it is, I think the more we love, the more we are able to love and to
Hmm.
deliver that love to the people that we love and to the world, the happier we'll be, I
Absolutely.
think.
There's no question about it.
So,
Yeah. And you have that kind of energy. That's why everyone wants to be your friend, you know.
do they?
Yeah.
I know someone who
Both.
does not, and you know
Oh,
someone
maybe.
who
Oh, maybe.
doesn't.
Ah, I don't know about that.
No,
I,
but it's okay. It's okay. Maybe, yeah.
you know,
Thank you for
I
saying.
think you're very magnetic. You know,
Yeah,
people are
Jerry.
drawn to you for a reason. So it's amazing that you're exploring your life this way before your 31st birthday. That's that takes a lot of guts.
Thank
Wow.
you. Thank you for motivating me when I came to
Oh.
you with the idea. I value your opinions when I told you, Gerry, I have this project, and you said, go for it. And now here we are talking about this
Here we
book.
are.
Yeah. Thank you, Gerry. Thank you for
Oh,
participating. I
so
appreciate it so
so
much.
many, many more years of conversations, deep conversations, and sharing experiences.
Yes.
And one day you'll be in America or I'll be in Brazil.
Yes. I
And
want to give you a big hug one day. Yes.
okay, that's a deal. That's a
Yes.
deal.
And the last thing I wanted to say is thank you for being my friend. You know, you mean a lot to me, and we've been talking for the past 3 years, and you have helped me so much in moments that I was suffering, desperate, and you have always shown me a
Mm.
light, and I'm very thankful for your resistance, and I'm very thankful for you have chosen me as your teacher,
Oh.
and the destiny or God or I don't know brought us
I feel
together.
I feel greatly honored,
Thank
immensely
you,
honored.
thank you,
Thank
Jerry.
you.
So have a wonderful afternoon or morning. It's morning.
Abraços. Muitos
Abraços.
abraços.
Yes, and we'll talk soon. Yes, thank you.
Okay. Ciao, querida.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.